our view is that on a 5-year time horizon, 50% or more of commerce will be intermediated by agents. You will have some user-aligned agent that goes out and brokers with the internet on your behalf. And if this happens, like most of the internet as we know it doesn't make sense, or the stack for it doesn't make sense, like HTML websites probably don't make sense. That's not the most efficient way to communicate to an agent. The browser as a general purpose viewer of HTML websites doesn't make sense. The search engine and the search engine paid for by ads doesn't make sense. And then display ads for your traditional way of monetizing the relationship doesn't make sense. So you throw all that away and then you start with something new.
Welcome to Tokenized, the show focused on stablecoins and the institutional adoption of tokenized real-world assets. My name's Simon Taylor. I'm your host, author at FinTech Brain Food, and head of market dev at Tempo. And welcome back to another episode of our Agentic Commerce series. And of course, because we're doing Agentic Commerce, we have to have the one and only Bam Azizi back in the co-host seat, CEO and co-founder of Mesh. Bam, how you doing?
Good. Thanks for another episode. I'm super excited.
Yeah, this topic just seems to get hotter and hotter. And joining us today is Sam Ragsdale, who's founder and CEO of Merit Systems. How you doing, Sam?
Very good. Excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. Tell everybody what Merit is and what it does, and then we'll kick off the show from that.
Yeah, sure. So Merit has done a few things in its history. For the past 8 months, we've been focused on agentic commerce, or a particular variety that we call open agentic commerce, which means permissionless listing on the merchant side. There are 4 products we have in market, X402 Scan and MPP Scan, which are the primary marketplaces where merchants can list, and then users or agents can go to discover X402 or MPP services. And then we have Agent Cache, which is a wallet that is an MCP server that you can put into an existing agent, Cloud Code, Codex, Noose, Hermes, OpenClaw, etc. And then more recently, we have Poncho, which is a fully vertical agent hosted offering. Try poncho.com that allows you to access anything in the X402 or MPP ecosystems.
Lovely stuff. And we'll get more into who's using that and how they're using it in a second. But before I jump in, I got to remind everybody watching and listening that views and opinions of contributors today may be their own and might not reflect those of companies they represent. And please don't take anything we say as tax, legal, or financial advice. This is for informational purposes only. And I've got to remind everybody that this series is, of course, made possible by Mesh. Thank you, Bam, for doing this and going down the agentic commerce rabbit hole with us. All right, let's go to the background. Sam, let's talk about your background. Like, how do you end up in agentic commerce on chain? Like, what's your path there look like?
Yeah. So I went to school at WashU, where I met my co-founder, Ryan. We've been doing projects together for about 12 years. Out of school, I worked at Google Ads as a lowly entry-level software engineer. I spent 2 years there. I didn't expect it to be as important a part of my career, but the thing that you learn being at the ads giant that is Google is the old business model for the internet. What funded the free and open internet over the past 25 years, the majority of my life, was ads, was that any publisher could put content online, and then when consumers came and saw it, a third party, the advertiser, would pay for the relationship, and Google would make sure that was all fair. In the process, Google became the biggest proponent of the free and open internet as we know it. The more people search, the more people click, the more people crawl, Google makes more money. And so they became the business model for the internet, turned into a $300 billion a year ads monopoly, not according to me. So I spent 2 years there, and then went over to A16Z in 2021 when crypto started taking off. I fell in love with Uniswap. V2 at the time, Ryan and I were doing some arbitrage on it, doing some MEV, kind of like understanding the early innings of it pre-DeFi summer when volumes really took off. The thing I really loved about Uniswap was it was a 250 line code base, roughly the core of it. And it was on track to do $1 trillion of transaction volume. And there was something that just broke in my brain when I saw that as an engineer. I didn't even really know what a smart contract was at the time. I hadn't been, I didn't hold a lot of speculative assets. But there was something really, really cool about that a 250 line code base could do that. And it didn't require anybody to run. It would run forever. And it was economic infrastructure for humanity. It was 3 parties. There was the trader, the arbitrager that would keep the prices alive, and then the LPs that would provide capital. And that it organized an immense number of people just by putting this specific 250 line smart contract up. And so I fell in love with that idea of crypto. the idea that you could build sort of these money Lego blocks and really affect society in the process. Went over to A16Z Crypto, spent 3 years there as a technical infrastructure investor. Things like L1s, L2s, bridges, perps, all the technical stuff. The other half of my time I spent on our engineering team, building open source projects and putting them out into the ecosystem, hopefully to push the whole space forward. The one I'm proudest of is Jolt, which I built with a small team, world's fastest zero-knowledge virtual machine. I won't get into the weeds on that. Very proud of that work. You can find it at github.com/A16Z/Jolt. And then left about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, to start the company. At the time, we started working on open source incentives. We spent about 9 months on that until we decided to leave it behind. We found open source changed overnight with the advent of agents. When it became possible for everybody to contribute to open source, whether they knew what they were doing or not, open source kind of has crumbled under that weight. And we decided that somebody else had gotten to disrupting it before us. And then sort of went back to the drawing board on the things that we're really good at. We found that we're a really good application layer team. We happen to be really good at payments, and we happen to be really good at moving money on blockchains. And came to conviction that the next application for stablecoins beyond cross-border payments was going to be agentic payments, that agents natively needed a way to pay. And stablecoins are the simplest way to pay that's global by default and sub-cent fixed fees. And so they made a ton of sense for agents and then have really leaned in since then.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the new revolution that's happening, right? So I was chatting with Paul at Morpho the other day, and he said like I said, like, why people should trust you. Like, that's the whole point. They don't need to trust me. You're the most audited code on the planet, and you have like only 650 lines of codes. Like, you can't really go wrong. Or like when you're seeing Hyperliquid stats that with like I don't know, 12 employees, they were like generating $100 million per employee. Like, this is a revolution that was not possible without blockchain, and I'm like fascinated to see like how revolutionary a piece of technology can be. Plus, if you add agentic commerce to it, that would be like basically what we have in terms of finance on steroids, because we have like humans, they're doing like 2 transactions a day in average. Agents, they can do thousands of transactions. We have 5 billion human being connected to internet. We will have hundreds of billions of agents. Just imagine that the number of transactions that can happen, and the traditional rails cannot really handle that. They're not built. The nature of the technology is not built for agentic commerce. So I'm very, very bullish of the crossroad of like agentic plus blockchain.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, they say, why now for microtransactions? They've been tried tens of times before. The first microtransaction startup is as old as the internet, right? Like, they were done at the same time. The common thing is like, the 402 status code existed when they were inventing the browser. When Mark Andreessen and Tim Berners-Lee and co were working on the browser, the 402 status code, they thought there was going to be micropayments on the internet. And there's been a micropayment attempt every year since then for, the past 27 years. And a lot of people focus on, okay, like the infrastructure didn't exist. There was no way to do sub-cent fixed fees at scale. And blockchains now allow that. But I think the other piece is the part that you mentioned, which is the cognitive friction of microtransactions was too high. If you as a human like had like a little notification in your browser every time you wanted to pay 1 cent for an article, and you had to click that every time, there's like a limited number of times you're going to click it before you get really, really sick of it. What agents allow you to do, though, is you kind of like express your intent, your like budgeting goal in natural language, and then the agent will follow it. And it doesn't care. It'll focus on that 24/7, make a very good decision on your behalf as to whether or not you should be paying for this thing. And all of a sudden you can compose, 500 different calls for 1 cent each from 500 different merchants and produce something that's much more valuable.
I think that's such a great point, because the cognitive load and the user experience is so rarely considered in this conversation. I would wager that you're familiar with HTTP. I think it's 418, which is just I'm a teapot. And that HTTP code has been called far more than 402 because engineers just love to do that thing as almost like a ping, right? It's probably been used a whole bunch more. Once you take the cognitive load out of it and you move it somewhere else, you're expressing something entirely different. But take me inside the new pain that exists for engineers, for teams. You're inside Claude Code, you're inside Codex, you're using Cursor, you need to buy some stuff. What's the new pain look like? What's the new friction if it's not that cognitive load on the user?
Yeah, so I think, well, I'll do two different target customers. One is the engineer, everybody at my company, and then I would say that the new up and coming vibe coder, which I actually think is a different category. For engineers, because the time to execution of a given idea is so small now. It used to take me like weeks to get one of these projects done. Like I have like a backlog of side projects and I get to basically pick, 4 years ago, I would pick 3 a year because they would take me 4 weeks each, something like that. And I only have a limited amount of extra time. Now with Claude Code, Codex, et cetera, it gets done basically instantly. The bottleneck ends up being like, how many accounts can I sign up for and like A/B test different API keys? And so I'll like hop between AWS and Vercel and Modal and a few others and pull all of these API keys and inject them into an environment. And I have a bunch of friends that pre-X402 and all this stuff had like a massive .env in their on their machine somewhere that has just every API key under the sun with a credit card pre-attached, and they would just dump it into their Claude Code or their Codex, and it worked fairly well for them because they knew what an API key was. They roughly trusted their agent, and they didn't think it would run away with it. And that was actually a really good user experience. I think X402 MPP tools like Agent Cache, you have that one MCP server in all of your agents. For me, it's Claude Code and Codex. I don't really use anything else. And then you have access to all of the hosting infrastructure, all the GPUs, all of the databases, all of that stuff that you could ever need. And it makes it much faster to try a project. I can spin up 8 different prototypes in a day, and I never leave Codex or Claude Code. Maybe it's to click out to the preview and test out my little web app. But I actually think the audience that I'm more excited about is the up and coming, you could call them an up and coming vibe coder, somebody that thinks about themselves as sort of like just below a developer, but they have the capabilities of a developer because they have the agency, they have Claude Code, they have Codex. But I think it's even people that don't think of themselves as a developer. They're a go-to-market person, they're a salesperson, but now they can hop into Codex, Claude Code, Claude Cowork, so one of these emerging products, and they can say something like, I want to find all of the farmers outside of Bozeman, Montana that do north of $5 million a year of revenue. And they type that into a Claude Cowork. What happens behind the scenes is Claude Cowork writes a program, right? It's like, okay, I have these 15 APIs, like I have a local LLC search, and then I have Google Maps, and then I have white pages, and then I have like some people enrichment search. And if I combine these all in this way and write, this 600-line script, I actually can execute on this. And so it goes ahead and it, pays a few cents here and there. And maybe it says, okay, like I think there's another 300 of these. This is going to cost $4. Are you good with this? And the user says, yes. It executes the program. And then it throws the program away and gives you the CSV. And so this person doesn't think about themselves as a programmer. They don't know what an API is. They don't know what an API key is. They don't know how to integrate with a server, what HTTP is. They don't know any of this stuff. They started from a high-level intent, which is I would like to find all of the farmers outside of Bozeman, Montana. They put that into an agent that knows how to execute it. It pulls all the tools out of the shelf. It gets the outcome done, and then it throws away, and the user's very happy with what they've done. And so I don't know if you'd consider them a developer, but they're definitely a net new market for API consumption that did not exist before agents. And I could not have conceived of existing before agents.
Bam, do you know folks like that? And this sort of liquid software, this single-use software, are they going to choose stablecoins, or are they going to choose some other payment method? And why might they choose stablecoins in this particular case?
I think stablecoin versus fiat will be buried, right? So it would be like you would use it even without like knowing it, right? The term called a stablecoin sandwich exists for a reason. Like fiat comes in, converts to stablecoin, crosses border, and then gets converted to another local currency. and gets off ramp. So I think from like what Sam mentioned, those high intent type of interaction with agents, they really don't care. Like they want the cheapest, fastest, best option for the payment, and the stablecoin will be able to power that. And the main reason is initially it's just, I can pay with credit card or this and that, but when it comes down to like fraction of a cent, and you have to do that like 1,000 times, like guess what? The traditional financial rails breaks that level. It's a quantum level of payment, and it just simply doesn't work. And then that's why stablecoin comes in. And then slowly you feel like, okay, like if I can use that for that, I can use it for $100 transaction because I don't need to wait 2 days for the other party to receive the fund on the other side of it. So slowly you feel like, okay, like I can use it for everywhere. Why I'm just picking like microtransactions. So I think that's where it starts, but will end to own the entire transactions between agents to agents or human to agents.
I've seen a lot of folks launching like cards for agents lately. I know CrossMint did it, and seen a few companies that are launching just that and just giving them virtual cards. And it's one of the reasons when we were building MPP, I was so keen to support cards in MPP as a first-class citizen. And, obviously I know Kai pretty well, and we were able to do some stuff there that benefits everybody in cards, not just Visa. And so to your point, Bam, I do think these things start to coexist. And Sam, I was reflecting on what you were saying at the beginning of the show that, you had a stint at Google. Google, arguably the greatest monetizer of the attention economy there is. They take that gap between, you're unsure about what you want to you've bought the thing, and they monetize that gap extremely well. An agent tends to show up with an intent fully loaded, like it already knows what it wants. Now it's a question of how efficiently can you route it. And so what do you think about like the connection between user intent and outcome? How's that evolving? And how do you think about it in your Agent Cash wallet scenario? Like, how are you connecting these two? Because I know the card networks are spending a lot of time on intent and mandates and auditability and all that sort of stuff. What does it look like for you?
Yeah, so for us, the main lever today is search, which is that there's a tool in the MCP server, the Agent Cash MCP server called Search. This will allow you to search for anything in the X402 or MPP ecosystems. And so you say something like, I would like to do enrichment, or nano banana image generation, or file hosting. And then we serve all of the results to you, along with any telemetry we have on how often they've been called, so that your agent can pick which one it wants to use. It's very important to us that this is like user aligned, like that we don't serve advertising in this, right? That this is as good of a tool result as we possibly can, so that the end user's agent can choose the tool that they want to use. There's kind of an interesting, unique challenge here, which is particularly in Agent Cash. We don't actually have telemetry. We don't proxy all of the calls. Like we don't intercept all of the requests. And so we don't actually know which services provided which results because we don't want to look through everybody's data. And so we have to do our best that we can to take a given natural language string and convert it to a set of results that provides the tool that people want. And we do, in some sense, we rely on the end user's agent to make a lot of the decisions, right? The trajectory is based on your Claude context or your Hermes agent's context. And we just provide a set of tools, a router to, all 40,000 tools in X402 and MPP.
Super fascinating. Look, I'm going to pause us here where we hear from our sponsors, but we'll come back on this point in just a second. This episode, if it isn't already obvious, is sponsored by our friends at Visa, the leader in digital payments. Visa's Tokenized Asset Platform, or VTAP, uses smart contracts and cryptography to help banks bring fiat currencies on-chain, whether it's launching a stablecoin or deposit tokens or something else. VTAP allows financial institutions to issue fiat-backed tokens, improving financial efficiency and enabling programmable finance. Check out the links in this episode's description to express your interest in VTAP. This episode is brought to you by Mesh, the first global crypto payments network. Connecting over 300 wallets, exchanges, and payments platforms, Mesh enables anyone to pay and get paid instantly anywhere in any asset. Mesh makes digital transactions seamless, secure, and universal, fueling the next era of agentic commerce. Learn more at meshpay.com/AI. Sam, just before you finishing, you were talking a little bit about Agent Cash there. What's the response been from developers to what you built so far? What are you hearing when you're speaking to them?
Yeah. So I think the part that I'm most excited about is that there are a small and growing number of people that find it completely magical, that they can put this one plugin into their codex, their Claude Code, their OpenClaw, and all of a sudden it gets more capabilities, right? It's not, this thing has a stablecoin wallet and, it can pay on Tempo and Solana and Base, or it can access X402 or MPP. It's just, my agent became more effective as a result of putting this MCP server in place, right? Like now all of a sudden I'm able to host websites and that's really cool. Or I can access all of the frontier image and video gen and that's really cool. Or I'm a market researcher that really likes to trade. Maybe I have the Base MCP installed and I like buying things on Coinbase and formulating a position on the equity or the crypto markets. And now I get to research all of the cross-border trade data in order to do that. And with this one MCP server, I can access these 40,000 different APIs, and therefore my agent is much more effective. And I think that's really cool. One MCP, 40,000 different tools under the hood.
Do you guys support the card payments, as Simon mentioned? The agentic card helps you, or you don't care about the payment method?
We do not. So we support X402 on Base and Solana and MPP on Tempo today, USDC across the board. We've talked quite a bit about supporting cards down the road. I think the Agent Cash product particularly is focused on what we call open agentic commerce. What we really care about there, the property that we think is really cool and we wanted to lean into with that product and see if we could blow the market open, was open, which is that any merchant can list overnight. They can come online, put up a server as easy as buying a domain in 2000, and then we will be able to service them and allow any of the clients that have Agent Cash installed to pay them directly. And so no registry with any third party other than the domain service.
Yeah, part of the 20-year payments veteran in me is like, oh, chargebacks exist for a reason. Like this could be something that the market demands. But to your point, buying a domain in 2000 didn't have all of the downside risk yet. You just needed to make it easy because nobody's done it before. You can build in sort of protections to edge cases as they start to evolve. So that makes complete sense. But I think the dirty secret of like X402 and MPP is there's not a lot of volume yet. There's a magical experience if you've got it, but there's like almost more protocols than there are transactions. So what are the bits of kindling you're seeing, and what do you think leads us to an inflection point?
Yeah, so I'm not shy about saying this. I think I say this very aggressively. The big pickup in volume, you'll see the numbers: $100 million, $250 million of agentic commerce volume between X402 and MPP. The vast majority of this was in October, right after we launched X402 Scan. And the reason behind it was that many people launched tokens. They had speculative activities that they were doing. And the idea was, let's make our volume look as high as humanly possible, and then we'll have a token associated with it, and people will be able to make lots of money off of it. I don't think that's very productive towards creating new agentic capabilities. I think a lot of people had fun with it. But I think the real numbers are closer to $25,000 to $30,000 a month of volume, which is, pocket change for like a Visa, MasterCard, Stripe, Coinbase, but growing very steadily. And I think the thing that's growing most steadily and I'm most excited about is merchants. So there, of course, there was a massive uptick in October when there was that meme coin craze associated with X402. But since that leveled off, it's basically been linear growth since then, and it's starting to tick up in the past 2 months. And subjectively, I don't have an objective measure for this, but subjectively, the quality of the endpoints is increasing. There's things that I'm more likely to buy. And so I think my old boss, Chris Dixon, has this famous chart of the developer innovation price cycle, which is basically his view of crypto and venture markets, which is first the prices will spike, and then lots of buyers and developers and interests will come in, and then prices probably inevitably will dip. But the developers will stay around and they will build for the next cycle. They'll build something awesome because now they're excited about what this technology could be. It probably didn't live up to it on the first price spike, but now they're around and they're going to build this future that they want to exist. And we very much see that happening, which is there was an initial spike associated with, speculative activities that were not particularly exciting, but it did get the word out on the dream of what the agentic internet could look like. Like, what does it look like when every merchant has a headless offering that your Claude code, your user-aligned agent can directly interact with? Lots of developers got nerd sniped by that. They're coming out, they're building API endpoints that will make the next wave of this in 6 or 12 months pretty awesome.
I think this is a great metaphor here, Bam, for the 2021-20 sort of, there was the NFT craze and there was FTX and there was all of that sort of stuff, and the Solana summer and Stablecoin summer came many years later, right? And sort of, but what we got out of that was stablecoins and payments infrastructure and embedded wallets, and just like a whole bunch of builders came into the space back then. Bridge was founded back then, and I think that's a really valid point. I mean, what do you think is being built now that's going to be really useful in a few years' time?
Yeah, I think my prediction for the future is like everything will come on chain. So as a result of that, the crypto market cap goes from 4 trillion to 100 trillion, not because Bitcoin price is going up, it's because all these real world assets are coming on chain. So you're already seeing tokenization of equities, tokenization of like all sort of assets, from real estate to debit to credit to lending. And the benefit of that is like it is at the same time you're seeing this boom in AI. So the byproduct of these two trends would be amazing, because if you think about it, I would compare it with another analogy that I have, which is like the movement from on-prem computation to cloud computation. In 2010, if someone asked you, do you think banks and all these big names would like bring their data on cloud? Like, they should be crazy to just give up their security and then more than cloud. Like that was the debate. And then fast forward to today, like majority of the computation is happening on the cloud. Most of the data is stored on the cloud. That firewall that existed, that boundary that existed, doesn't exist anymore. And I think the difference between cloud, the migration from on-prem to cloud to off-chain to on-chain, is you had to pay for the cloud. For on-chain, it's free, it's fast, it's better. So it's inevitable and it's happening. And the beauty of it is the interoperability between basically different type of systems, right? So just imagine that your equity that is sitting on Robinhood can be now transferred to Fidelity without like these two go and build proprietary integration with each other. If the asset stays on blockchain, everyone can interact with it, whether publicly or privately, without like knowing the proprietary knowledge of like how you interacted, how you put the asset on or store the asset. And I think that would be the beginning of a great era for AIs, because they are faster than human being, and they need the speed that those proprietary technologies cannot offer. But if everything is on blockchain, interoperability would basically maximize the speed of like interaction between agents. And I'm like super excited to see how this will unfold in near future.
Definitely. I'm interested in the let's go protocol for a second, Sam. An honest assessment, how you see that protocol shaking out. Obviously, yeah. I'll declare an interest. I like MPP, of course I do. But your honest assessment, because X402 has meta, it has narrative, it has a great name, it has been there for a while, it's adding new features all the time. There's MPP, but there's also like all of these other protocols from Google and Shopify and out in the universe. Like, how's all of this shaking out, or is it just not? Is it just like, hey, we could still not have HTTPS yet for a few years. We don't know how we're going to do any of this stuff.
Yeah, so the space that I see X402 and MPP playing in is that they play a very simple role in my mind, and this is how I explain it to merchants and clients that think about coming on board. It's for agents, how do I pay? And for merchants, how do I check that the agent paid? The thing that's really nice about stablecoins is there's instant settlement. So checking that the agent paid is really simple, right? Like when somebody pays with a credit card, it's actually like, ooh, like kind of extending credit to them. Like I'm not sure it's going to settle in a month. What if there's a chargeback? Stablecoins are like cash, is what we've called it, agent cash. Either I have it or you have it. They're the closest equivalent to digital cash. And so X402 and MPP are well optimized for that. I am excited about some of the extensions. It'll look like you are in X402 and MPP to support credit cards. I think then there's lots of other protocols that I think a lot of them are focused on agent-to-agent style stuff, where agents are selling directly to other agents. I haven't quite figured that out. It's very odd to me to think about an agent in a direct agent-to-agent negotiation. When you negotiate with another business or another person or another company, there's a fundamental limitation on it, on like the respect for the other person, the number of rounds that you can do, and like the bandwidth of communication. If, just imagine models are free, like in the near future. If agents can just negotiate infinitely, then the game theory optimal thing to do would just be to state your preference up front. Because otherwise you'll just go back and forth an infinite number of times. Like there's no cost in doing so. And so I think probably that will happen at some point in the future, but is not something I'm particularly focused on. And then I think the payment layer is really just about how do I pay for this good or service as efficiently as possible. I think the other piece that we've been working on quite a bit, and we've worked with the Tempo team on this, and we've worked with the X402 Foundation on this as well, is the discovery layer, which is X402 and MPP will specify how to pay for the good or service once you're ready to check out, say. But the version of the future we're really excited about is sort of the headless internet. Like our view is that on a 5-year time horizon, 50% or more of commerce will be intermediated by agents. You will have some user-aligned agent that goes out and brokers with the internet on your behalf. And if this happens, like most of the internet as we know it doesn't make sense, or the stack for it doesn't make sense. Like HTML websites probably don't make sense. That's not the most efficient way to communicate to an agent. The browser as a general purpose viewer of HTML websites doesn't make sense. The search engine and the search engine paid for by ads doesn't make sense. And then display ads for your traditional way of monetizing the relationship doesn't make sense. So you throw all that away and then you start with something new. And sure, agents will pay either microtransactions or macro transactions for high intent, high ticket items. But then you also, you need some way for them to discover all the merchants. You need some way for the merchants to say, I sell Shopify stuff, or I sell enrichment, or I sell satellite data, or some other type of good or service that we can't dream up today. And so we've spent a lot of time figuring out that discovery layer, which is how, as a server, can I advertise my goods and services so an agent that is enabled with X402 or MPP can pay for that thing.
And walk me through what that discovery looks like today, because, to your point, I might have a widget I want to sell, but how's anybody going to discover me? And I might want to buy your widget, but how do I know you exist?
Yeah. So today, the main thing we focused on is sort of the schema. And the way that we think about it is at the first level, you have an origin, so a domain name, basically. And you can then fan out to all of the individual services that you sell. So maybe you have like 5 different pairs of shoes. Maybe you sell 5 different image and video generation models. And then each one of those, you have some parameters that you can pay for. Maybe in the first set of shoes, you can pay for red, black, and gold. And the next you can pay for, and then there's sizes, and you can do that across all of them. And then at the very bottom of this, you also have some what we call like cross a resource context, which is what people traditionally think of as a skill. Here are the 15 endpoints you could possibly hit. Maybe for this one, you request let's say it's a flight checkout API. This is a secret, but it's something we're currently working on. First, you ask for a quote for flights to Charleston, South Carolina. Now you have a quote object. Now you want to maybe adjust the quote. You want to say, I want a middle seat. And then you want to make another request saying, actually, I want to add another seat and I want to add a return flight. And then finally, you want to check out. and buy the thing, and then maybe later you want to cancel the flight and get your money back. Those are all different endpoints, and you have to compose them in a certain way in order to get the result out of it. And so we have kind of those 5 different layers of context that if you put it in a structured manner, the agent will know how and when to read it so that it can traverse your endpoint, traverse your merchant, and get the job done.
That makes complete sense. OTA or online travel is such a high risk, high fraud space. They definitely want to get paid sooner if they can. I'm not surprised. And also the fees involved in payments, they tend to be very sensitive. It's quite a low margin business. So I'm not surprised they're leaning in. So that reminds me is the well-known endpoint in UCP. If you've looked at that, it's a very, very similar model you're describing. So I wonder if these things will kind of come together. Bam, I'm interested in your thoughts on what you're seeing. You have a pretty big global network where you're seeing this activity start to pick up, and your thoughts on Merit Systems. And are you, like me, somebody that has a tab open on both MPP scan and X402 scan permanently, or is that not your vibe?
Yeah, I have many tabs open, but yes, 2 of it is just scanning different things that's happening. But I'm like super interested. I think the first part of agentic commerce will happen on the macro side, whether we like it or not. I think I was like reading in the stat during Thanksgiving last year, more than 80% of American basically bought gifts based on the agent's recommendation. And the joke was like, you trust agent more than your spouse. Like if I want to buy a gift, I just go to ChatGPT or Perplexity or any other agent and then ask. And then just imagine that those agents can go and pay with PayPal or pay with Visa card in different types of merchants. That will happen. That would be the initiation. That's where we are seeing the massive growth. And then slowly we'll see microtransactions, agents paying each other or agents paying for the resources, whether it's API or image or whatever. And that's where microtransaction comes to the picture. I strongly agree with Sam in terms of like we need a new environment for agents. We need a new type of browsers and API model and protocols for agents to be able to communicate and interact with the internet. What we have like that, you have to go to Shopify and click 20 different buttons and then check out. That is dead. I think in 5 years, nobody would do that. Like your agents would be capable of doing that. You don't even bother to type in like 16-digit codes and put your zip code or billing address. Those are all going to be automated and out of humans' way. But we are not ready today, as of now, for agents to be able to do those transactions. So the change is definitely necessary on the infrastructure. And I think what I'm super interested to learn from and also see from Sam and the industry in general is, are we going to consolidate those protocols, or it would be another stablecoin situation that every company has its own protocol?
Well, they're mostly ERC20s, right? So at least Ethereum managed to consolidate there.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm curious to see what happens in the market. I bet on consolidation. I hope the consolidation happens. But yeah, I know Simon. There's MPP and export too, but
this happened in the e-commerce space somewhat already, right? There was ACP and UCP, and those are starting to become one and the same thing. And I suspect ACP will get folded under UCP in the not too distant future. And the Google standards seem to have a bit of momentum behind them, with all of the PSPs starting to adopt them. And that's, to your point, Sam, about open. Like, actually, you've got to take the community and the industry with you. But merchants are also the ones that get left behind in a lot of these stories. It's PSP-led, it's scheme-led, it's issuer-led. It's very rarely the merchant who gets to win here, and there's a new type of merchant coming online. So very excited to see what you guys are building at Merit. So what's on the docket for you? What's the agenda look like? What are you guys going to be doing next?
Yeah, maybe actually I'll answer that, but I would love to jump on the tail end of the previous comment, which is one of the things that I'm working on right now and working on with a few other people, a few other teams in the space, is I think a fairly unfortunate state of affairs here would be that closed agentic commerce wins, that the only way that you're able to buy things through your agent is if your agent is whitelisted. And probably it's not actually your agent. It's not Sam's agent that's whitelisted. It's like Sam's Codex agent is whitelisted, or OpenAI is whitelisted as a merchant that can buy from Shopify stores. I think that would be a fairly unfortunate state of affairs. I think the much more exciting one would be if every merchant sells to anybody over this protocol, the same way the web started, right? It wasn't in order to render in Google Chrome, you have to make a partnership with Google with your website. Rather, your website stands up overnight. And now every browser, Firefox, Chrome, Internet Explorer, Netscape, Mosaic, whatever, is able to show you. And I think that's the future that's much more exciting. It's not bottlenecked by a few players. It allows for permissionless innovation. It allows for sort of the next generation of commerce that we can't possibly imagine today. And so that's the future that I very much am pushing for, and why I lean for open agentic commerce. I think that the stablecoin standards naturally lean into that, which is it's really easy to pay anybody whether they registered or not. You do not need an intermediary. You do not need a central registry to do so. It's directly peer-to-peer between a user agent and a merchant agent. The other thing that I think, the other battle that's related that is going on right now is basically, like, we know people will have agents in the future. We know everybody will have an agent. Maybe you'll have a work agent. You'll have a home agent. You'll have a consumer agent. I don't know how many there will be. And there's a battle basically for who owns it and like who it's aligned with. Today, we're actually in a very interesting state, which is that the vast majority of agents are Gemini, Claude, and ChatGPT agents that users pay for directly, not monetized orthogonally, which means that the agents are user aligned. This is true of Hermes and OpenClaw as well. That agent is operating on your behalf. And like Sam Altman has some quotes about like kind of the complexity of bringing ads in, which is that when you ask ChatGPT for a hotel recommendation, it'll try its very best to give you a good hotel recommendation. And it might not actually be the best one, but at least it tried. Like if you go to Amazon Rufus, for example, that agent is owned by Amazon and provided for free. What it's really provided for is the advertiser is paying for it again, right? Amazon now makes $17 billion a year on ads. It's a very significant line item for one of the largest companies in the world. And those ads are not user aligned, right? They're trying to sell you something, whoever paid the highest for your impression. And so, of course, the agent will do that as well. And people might get used to the consumer might get used to a world where the agent is not user aligned, actually. It's aligned with the merchant. And then we have some recent things coming out as well. Lots of people are leaning into local models. The local models are 99% cheaper and it seems like only 20% less effective. If that trend continues, maybe everybody has a local model. And then Siri, it looks like we'll have a local model run by Apple that definitely is user aligned. So two different battles. One, on the merchant side, will merchant commerce be open? And then two, will the agents be user aligned or third-party advertiser aligned? And I think both of them are fascinating. And I'm certainly rooting for the world where the commerce is open and the agents are user aligned. We'll see if that ends up happening. There's, a lot of money in making sure the other way happens, but I think that there's a chance.
I love that you're out there fighting the good fight for that. And by pulling in that direction, maybe we end up a little bit closer to it. I do worry about the need to KYC agent users and KYB the model providers, and with the geopolitics and a lot of that, it's just going to be hard to get away from. But user-aligned local models feels entirely possible. But then there's Mastodon and Blue Sky. Every time you try and go like further into decentralized, you sort of end up in these like user experience problems, and so there's going to be a tension point, and we need somebody pulling in one direction. So looping back then, so what are you going to be focused on over the next few weeks and months, and what should we look forward to from you?
Yeah, so our main focus right now is Poncho, tryponcho.com. Poncho is a vertical agent that has access to everything in X402 or MPP. One of the learnings we had from Agent Cache, which we're very grateful to our thousands of Agent Cache users, but was that it was kind of hard to control the experience. It was hard for most people to install an MCP server. Not everybody is that sophisticated. Whereas Poncho, you can go to tryponcho.com. You can use the free tier. It's very generous, and you can immediately try Agentic Commerce. One of the as you pointed out earlier, we're talking about on the order of $20,000, $30,000 a month of volume. It's quite hard to get new merchants online. Sort of some of the biggest companies in the world suggest that they host their APIs, maybe even create a new API to support agents. And so the real goal is to increase the size of the demand side. If I can get that number to $100 million a month in volume, all of a sudden it's much, much more compelling for new merchants to come online. And each incremental capability actually exponentially grows the capabilities of agents that have agentic commerce built in, because it can compose together a bundle of 40,000 different resources that can provide various capabilities.
It's exciting times. I am looking forward to this more open commerce future. I want to see it exist, and I'm really big fan of what you're building at Merit Systems. So if people want to find out more, if they want to go to tryponcho.com, but anything else they should be checking out, and where do they get hold of you, Sam?
Yeah, tryponcho.com, easiest way to try out agentic commerce, or follow me on Twitter on x.com/samrags_.
And Bam, how about you and everything at Mesh?
Yeah, you can follow MeshPay, and you can find me on x.com, Bam Azizi Mesh.
Perfect. And you'll find me at SY Taylor and all the socials, screaming into the void at fintechbrainfood.com, and also over at tempo.xyz, where we're cooking up some new white papers on all things TradFi. Thank you very much for watching and listening. It would really help us if you leave us a review and tell all of your friends to subscribe too. But we'll catch you next time. Bye for now.